It's like them becoming. I had a way of buffering and controlling my activity, because I became of a mindset that if things weren't a positive environment for me and I didn't feel good about it, I was going to make a decision that when I said yes to something and engaging, I meant yes. Yeah. And when I said no, I didn't feel bad about it, because I kind of came to that before I ever saw you. Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is that when I start pulling apart where how did it affect work, there's more, there's only so much we could talk about in an hour. And to me, I was thinking about, hey, I had a little bit of a snippet of anxiety, but actually more of a big gulp of relief, knowing that I was going to be on the show, because I know there's other people out there that are experiencing or did experience what I did experience. And when I say that, it's from childhood, and I'll bring it up to present day as quickly as I can, but I think laying it out. Imagine, if you will, from childhood, I was the middle child, okay? So I had an older sister who was about a year and a half older than me, younger sister who was a surprise, but a choice, a surprise, 5 years younger. So interestingly enough, the dynamics of it was their perfect plan and their perfect setup that they wanted to have as a family unit was a boy, a girl, and them. And my little sister was a surprise, right? So again, it makes it sound so awful, but that whole dynamic, you could feel the undertone of, now we have the older child and the baby, and here I am in the middle child syndrome, right? Yeah. Well, what I started to notice was early on is that I had things like I had hearing problems. I was nearly deaf until they realized what was going on, until about the age of 2 or 3, and it continued on to where I had hearing problems. So that was looked at as a deficiency. There's something wrong with him. And then what was interesting was I also had, at that time, with the limited knowledge that was out there, I had attention deficit disorder, which they looked at as a learning ability. So I was put into this box of do the best you can. It's, you have these disadvantages. It's just the way it is. Well, that was never acceptable for me. So I had a lot of anger that started really early, perpetual anger and frustration. And so that carried on. And I found myself, as time went on, I had a very difficult time staying focused. And I realized over time that part of it was the attention deficit disorder, chemical imbalances, things that were going on. But it was also reinforcement. So I bring that up because carrying that anger, I was doing things to act out. And as a child too, I was exposed to things that, just kind of skewed my whole perspective. And my younger sister, who is gone now, she passed away 6 years ago. She actually was really suffering and took her own life in her great farewell, which I say it that way because she actually did things purposely to get a better positioning for herself. So what I started to realize when I finally got to going through sessions with you and talking to you was that these things that were going on, I'd already done a lot of work. I had self-teachings, a lot of positive reinforcement. But I had finally gotten to a point where I had realized that all those things that were going on was not because of me. It was because of them and what they were attempting to do for themselves.
Well,
fast forward. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that in my experience, the increase in ADHD and all of that ADD, if you look at what it is, it's fear. The amygdala is firing. Everyone's in massive fear. Well, listen to how you explained your mom. Your mom's been scared to death of being sick for years. So she made sure she's sick. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do. This isn't an opinion. This is part of the problem out there is when we're sick and hurt, It's because an emotion hasn't been processed. The medical community knows this. Everybody knows it. Well, everybody but the general public knows it. And that's why when you listen to commercials on TV for medicine, you hear the side effects are worse than whatever they're trying to treat, because the way pills work is, I'll keep it simple. They go to shut down the cell that's firing the emotion, and what they do is they squeeze out emotions that aren't firing, and that's why you get all these side effects, okay? That's literally how medicine works, very simplified way. But we've been trained by the drug companies, and I'd never tell people don't take pills, but it's not the solution. I mean, they've shown emotions drive your sickness and illness, and listen to your mother. She's been wanting to be sick for years because it pays off. It works for her emotionally. She controlled you and everybody else through her illness. She gets to blame you. I mean, she blamed you for her illnesses for years. And this is the sad fact that we don't talk about, we don't deal with, we don't face. But that's, I mean, you want to talk about the way you grew up with deficiencies and being sent that message. Think of what that would do to a young child and how scary that would be. And anger is always a mask for fear. So whenever we're angry, we're in fear. So, I mean, it's so, like, to me, the problem is no one knows this information. So while it's so obvious to me, I forget. We don't teach this stuff. That's why nobody knows. That's why there's a role for someone like myself. Anyway, Keep going. I just wanted to interject on that.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, the bottom line is that you're 100% right. When you go back there, I bring this up to kind of set the stage for, just the ongoing agonizing battle I had to just, quite frankly, accomplish things. But I had one thing going for me that turned out to be a positive. And you talk about it in your book, and you talk about it in the audio. It's the reverse of, well, there was bad along the way too, of course, but with different addictions and different things that were self-destructive. But the other side of it was I'll show them.
Yeah.
I'll show them concept. The reason I had a determination to I'll show them is because I was so tired of people telling me you're just average. It's, hey, if you can get C's in your grades, actual words, quote unquote, came out of my mother's mouth because of your setbacks. That's fine. That's all you can expect.
And that's the worst day cycle right there. Just that comment.
Right.
That right there. Think of how devastating a comment like that is. And parents say things like that all day, every day. Idle conversation.
Yeah. And that's really, I mean, that sticks out. It just absolutely sticks out. And I went, I can remember the feelings. I said, imagine how a child would feel. I don't need to imagine it. I know how it felt. Yeah. Right. And it was interesting.
How did you feel?
I would get positive reinforcement, but yet then I would get the underlying, but, hey, because of your deficiencies, we only expect C's from you anyway.
Yeah.
That was fabulously encouraging. Good job, Mom.
So how did you feel? What were the feelings in that moment?
The feelings were is that I was basically cornered, put into a corner saying, that's it. That's all for you. That's all we expect. So I felt like, anger because I disagreed.
So rejection. Because if anger is fear, and fear is either rejection, inadequacy, or powerless, that's definitely rejection. Powerless, too. I mean, I guess she's also sending the message you don't have the skills, tools, or knowledge, so you're inadequate. You kind of hit all three.
Yeah, so I was always on this mode where I wanted to, and it went out to everybody. Everybody that, even people and situations, they have no idea, right? So the good things that came out of it to fast forward into, today was I had an affinity for being creative. I was really good drawer. I would be able to draw and express myself, pencil drawings.
Okay.
very, very well. And I still do a little bit here and there today, but, things of that nature. So there's the artistic part. I also found that if I put myself in a scenario where I was able to be an actor, so I got involved with drama, right? So dramatic training, was in musicals, was a singer, was a very good singer for a lot of years, was actually trained in, a cappella groups and chamber groups and solo groups and all those sorts of fun things, and did stage work and all those different things. When I look back on it, I know why I did it.
Why'd you do it?
I did it as a way as I could say, hey, look at me. I'm good at this. Look at me, right? Look at me. I'm better than average. But the other side of it was I was able to also see that it was feeding my needs to be able to escape as well.
So you're talking about the part in the book where, I bring up how we self-victimize. And not that every choice we make is bad, but whether it's your career, your friends, your hobbies, whatever it is, your relationships, because of these messages we get sent, we relive them, usually against ourselves. Most of our choices, like I learned I never wanted to play either sport I played professionally. I think what you're saying is after reading the book and going through this, you're like, oh my God, while I enjoyed it, wait a minute, what I was really after was this. Am I hearing you right? Explain more about that.
Well, say that again, Kenny.
I said, explain more about the process you discovered. Like I describe in the book how I went from thinking I loved all these things and realizing, no, they were self-destructive. I was trying to get back at my brother and trying to get back at my father and all the different things. So I'm saying, go through that process yourself. And when you talk about the dramatic stuff you learned.
Well, what I found looking back, and it was all, you become wise as you look back at events and start to pull them apart. So what I realized there was a few things going on. I was filling a void in a hole because I felt these deficiencies, but I also saw that, hey, being involved in the center of attention on the stage and singing and doing things that required a lot of, work that had to be done, and that voice that was always there, literally and emotionally wise. It was driving these activities. Now they can be masked as, no, I just wanted to do something and be involved. And I did have a enjoyment for them because even still today, I am a performer, right? The only difference is though, back then, I was doing things to fill those holes that were in there. I found myself creating, just lying about things to create this facade and convincing myself that they were real. Yeah. So when I got into acting, it kind of filled that void. But those bad behavior of it, I was still doing that. And I was only doing that to fill what was missing in me. Yeah. And it goes back to those things. So I learned that, and then I did some other things that, where I was involved in, I started, another life, galaxy far, far away, as I always affectionately say it. I started actually weightlifting and training at the age of, wait for it, 11.
Wow.
11 in the garage, then was able to go to the gym and went down that whole route, got involved with powerlifting, right? So competitive. And it was, it was on the side sort of a scenario, but that was very short lived, but it continued through in the gym. And I would put myself through these vigorous weightlifting regimens. I found that it really made me feel empowered. It made me physically feel strong. And it gave me the self-image that I wanted to have. And everybody was always telling me, if you're going to compete in bodybuilding, you're never going to make it. Well, I showed them because I did make it for a while there. I was a competitive bodybuilder in California, right? On the coast in the good old heydays. I was competed at between the ages of actually 13 all the way up until my 19th birthday. Was going to go national. But one of my addictions that came in there that I had actually had a drug problem.